From where the West begins in Fort Worth, Texas, to around the globe, you are listening to Talk in the Night. I'm your host, Paranormal Phil, and later on in the show tonight, we are going to open up the phone lines for this very special Halloween episode of Talk in the Night, which is Ghost Talk. Now, Ghost Talk is almost like Coast to Coast AM's Ghost to Ghost, but my version of it. So we'll have the phone lines open for you to call in later on in the show and share your ghost stories. But first, up on the Talk in the Night website at talkingthenight.weebly.com, the urban legend about scattering human ashes at Disney is true. And of course, it's worse than we thought. For at least 11 years, an unnerving story has made the rounds on Disney fan blogs. People regularly scatter the ashes of loved ones at Disneyland and Disney World. Well, today, the Wall Street Journal has confirmed the urban legend. And we're not talking about a couple of isolated cases. This happens on a monthly basis. Disney employees have even had a special code to report when it happens. The code HEPA cleanup, HEPA, and I do have some friends that work at Disney, so if you guys happen to be listening to the show, tell me about those. Call in during the open lines and let me know about those. But you'll know that acronym if you're a vacuum enthusiast, because it refers to a special kind of filter you need to suck up very fine particles like human ashes. For its recent report, the journal talked about custodians of the park who have taken part in cleaning up human remains, as well as at least 3 families who have spread them. It's worth quoting this part in link. Current and former employees at Disney parks say identifying and vacuuming up human ashes is a signature and secret part of working in the happiest place on earth. It is grisly work for them, but cathartic release for the bereaved, who say treating Disney parks as a final resting place is the ultimate tribute to a Disney fan. And of course, you can read more up on the story by clicking on the link there on the story of the day. So, like I said, if you work at Disney or you've read this story or heard about this and you want to share your story if you've done this, go ahead and call into the show tonight and tell me about it. Now I'm going to get back to the chat room. Up on Spreaker.com, if you're listening to the show, pop it into the chat. There's a little chat bubble because I believe you have to sign up for a Spreaker account. You don't have to do any shows. It's free. But sign up for a Spreaker account, and then you can pop in the chat and listen to the thing. Or you can go to the show's website and pop on there and where it says listen live, and you can listen to the show that way. Of course, the show's up on iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, TuneIn, SoundCloud. So be sure to check it out on one of those. But as far as Spreaker goes, that's where the chat room is. That is where I am live. Or not live, but, well, I am live, but it's where, let's see, I'm just trying to share this thing and everything on my Facebook page. But that's where I will interact with the listeners in the chat room. Now, before we get into the open calls, okay, sorry, I'm just typing. Before we get into the calls, I want to mention about the rules for tonight. Only one caller at a time, and everything like that. Try to keep the calls to a minimum of no more than 5 minutes, just in case we get quite a few people tuning in. Do not share your last name. If you want to share your first name, you can, or you can just simply, just remain anonymous. But what I want to hear are some funny, some happy, or downright scary ghost stories. Because it is All Hallows Eve, Halloween, Samhain, and tonight is when the veil between our world and the spirit world is at its thinnest. Now, of course, I did a reading for a listener that won the reading last Friday night. I'm not going to do no readings tonight because they take a while to do properly. So if you want a reading, contact me at the show's website, on the show's website, or the Facebook page, and let me know. And I'll see if I can squeeze you in for a reading sometime. But during the live broadcast, I am not going to do readings. Now, of course, I'll probably bring in psychics and everything later on a future show to do readings. But as far as me doing them, no. It takes a lot out of me. As Nicole said here in the chat, I want to welcome Bill Betts and Nicole Gaspar, who were on the show last night as guests. But Nicole was the one that did the reading, or got the reading. And yes, it was intense. So, like I said, tonight, when you call in, share your ghost stories. And there's no just stories, experiences, or questions. It's telling a ghost story. It don't have to be real. Just if you got a favorite ghost story that you like to read or tell us about, then call in and share that. But like I said, keep them to 5 minutes. No rude comments, nothing about that, and nobody else's call or anything like that. Keep it simple like that. Like I said, the phone lines are open to call into the show. Skype Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-5561. Since I don't have the phone numbers playing right now. So while I wait for a call or anything like that, I'm going to actually read a ghost story from this one website, just so you kind of get an example of what I think the call should be. This one is for anyone with loud neighbors upstairs. If you live in an apartment or something like that, you know about living on the bottom floor and everything like that, and you got loud neighbors upstairs. I don't, but in my apartment. But or if it's a hotel that you're in and you got loud neighbors in the floor above you, this could be the case too. All right, so here's the story. It says, my sister and I were staying at an old historic hotel in the middle of nowhere, Montana. The building had been used since the 1800s. My sister loves this place and has frequented it many times over the years. I was kept up all night by someone pacing around on hardwood floors in the room above ours. It drove me crazy. In the morning, I asked my sister how she could sleep through it, and she told me that the upstairs of the building was used as a ballroom, or used to be a ballroom, but now was carpeted and empty. The hotel staff confirmed that nobody was up there, and furthermore, if they were, I wouldn't have heard heels on the hardwood floor. Now, I mean, I'm sure people have heard those type of stories. Okay. Hey, Nicole's saying you can share about Emily if you like, Phil. And she said she'll be right back. So when she comes back, I'll let her know. She can call in and share about Emily. But yeah, that kind of story is what I want to hear. So the phone lines are open. Feel free to call in. I'm only answering one call at a time. So if you call in while there's another caller on the line, I will not answer it, but just keep trying, and eventually I will answer it, because I do not have a call screener, so they can't answer the call and then transfer it to me when it's time. So eventually I'll get to that point in the show where I'll have somebody screening the calls. But for now, I don't screen the calls. I don't know who's calling in or anything like that. But the phone lines are open. And welcome back, Nicole, to the chat room. If you want to call in and share your story about Emily, you're welcome to do so. Like I said, tonight is a special Halloween night. And I know here in Fort Worth, it's 10 o'clock. And, of course, people are... All right, so we got a call coming in. Let's answer the call. You're on the air on Talk of the Night. Who's on the air?
Hi, this is Nicole.
Hey, Nicole. So, did you want to share your ghost story about Emily?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know where to start. Like, the first time I wrote that particular song, that's the first time I noticed her singing with it. And it kind of freaked me out at first, and then I got kind of used to it. I don't know. It's like music or...
So this spirit loves the piano music.
Yeah, it's like every time I play now, she's like constantly either humming or singing along. I just heard it tonight.
Yeah. Now, what is there any particular song that she really likes?
I know that there's a couple that she really likes. It's like the moment I hit that first and the first keynote, she'll like hum along.
Okay, because I know you had mentioned to me before that it was Moonlight Sonata. I'm trying to think of the composer.
I think it's Beethoven or something like that.
Yeah, it's either Beethoven or Mozart.
One of
And I just can't think of it off of the top of my head. But so she was singing tonight while you were playing.
Yes. Yes.
Now, does she do this regularly or?
Once in a while.
Just once in a while. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Did you have another ghost story or anything that you wanted to share, or is that it?
Yeah, at first I thought it was my haunted doll, Emily. That's her name too, but that apparently this is another spirit also named Emily.
Okay.
That I can hear.
All right. Well, thank you for your call and sharing your ghost story. Now, if you are listening to the show, once again, the phone lines are open. Don't be afraid to call in. I'm not evil tonight because I'm on the air. So I tried actually scaring. I was going to kind of scare kids earlier tonight. But of course I could not get the video projection to work the way I wanted. And of course it was cold and raining, and I don't think there was many kids out. Or if they were, they weren't in the complex. They went out somewhere else in the neighborhoods. So they did not come to the apartment complex or around here that I know of. But, hey, next year I'll have more stuff, more time to plan. I just did not have time to plan. Okay, Bill, go ahead and call in. Like I said, the phone lines are open. If you want to call in and share your ghost story, go ahead and do so. Phone lines are open. Either Skype Talking the Night or by phone at 817-717-5561. All right, and while we wait for Bill to call in, I'm going to bring up another quick ghost story, the share and everything like that in a moment. So we're waiting for Bill's call. Like I said, the phone lines are open. I know it's 8 o'clock. Some people are still 8 o'clock on the West Coast, and some people are still out trick-or-treating or Halloween parties. I understand that. But I am on the air, so if you aren't doing anything for this Halloween night, feel free to call in and everything like that. Now, I'm going to share, while I wait for Bill to call in, I'm going to actually share this a little bit more on Facebook. So, all right, so we got a call coming in. Hello, you're on the air talking tonight. Who's this?
This is Bill. Hey, Phil.
Hey, Bill. So what's your ghost story?
Sure. It's about a friend of mine. His name is John. It's about a place that he went to, a haunted, it's actually at a cemetery, the famous Bachelor's Grove Cemetery that his brother was at. I wasn't there, but he told me the whole story. What happened is, this is what he told me. He told me that him and his brother wanted to go to Bachelor's Grove to see if it is actually really haunted because, he was skeptical about it. But they walked around and they wanted to find out about the place and see what it's all about and everything else. And they decided just to look at the cemeteries and, different things there and all the different tombstones there. And after that, they said, okay, well, let's take a trip in the field to see if there's anything they talk about a disappearing house. So they started walking down the, yeah, it is. And after that, they started walking down the low road that they have a little road path that goes down, and there's like a little lake, and it crosses over. It goes around. And they're walking down towards the trees and everything else. And his brother, and his brothers was just getting a little nervous and everything else. And then they're looking, and he's thinking that he saw one of those houses that comes and goes, disappears, that they say that it has happened over there. He could have sworn he saw it. He told his brother about it. He said, well, I don't see nothing. I don't see what you're seeing. Then after that, eventually his brother, was feeling, he's like, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm okay. He's like, well, you want to keep going? He's like, yeah, sure. So they kept on walking and walking and walking. Next thing you know, his brother John spotted something, it looked like a dark shadow that came across him and then touched his shoulder, like grabbed his shoulder, went right by, and then went away, disappeared. And I guess his brother got eventually, he says, you okay? You look a little pale. And his brother felt sick, like sick to his stomach. And then he got on his ground, and he's like, hey, you all right? You okay? You need help? He's like, I'm okay. Just leave me alone. I'm okay. He started throwing up a little bit of blood, but not too much. So his brother's thinking something was wrong with him. And then he started feeling really shaky. And he's like, well, let me get you out of here. He's like, I got to get out of here. Yeah, get me out of here. I don't feel so good. I feel really, exhausted, head spinning, everything. And after that, he said, okay, I'm going to, whatever I could do. You want me to drag? He's like, yeah, pick me up. So he had to drag his brother to his vehicle, and they still had a long walk. And once they got to the car, he kept on feeling sick. He kept on throwing up on the way walking back. And then he got in the car. Once they finally got in the car and they started driving, his brother went to the gas station to get water and then started driving back home. And as soon as they started getting back home, kept driving away from the place, he started getting better and better and better. And then eventually when they got near the house, he was feeling like nothing ever happened.
Wow. Now,
yeah.
Now, is this occur on a regular basis where this house disappears?
Yes, it's known for Bastards Grove Cemetery. You can check it out about the disappearing house at Bastards Grove Cemetery in Illinois. And it'll state it about the disappearing house. They definitely have it there.
Oh, I'll definitely have to let my guest from Monday night know about that because she is in Illinois, and
oh, great,
up by the Peoria State Hospital.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm sure she would love to hear about that kind of ghost story.
Yeah, I would love to tell her that. I would definitely love to tell her that.
Yeah, I'll definitely send send her information to you and everything like that. So that way you can let her know and contact her.
Okay.
So, thank you for the call.
Thanks.
And sorry, I hung up on him before he was done. Hey, Bill.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I accidentally hung up the phone on you. Sorry about that.
No, that was me. I thought you were done and everything like that. So,
okay.
I ended the call and I heard you talking just as I was hanging up. I was like, oh, shoot.
Yeah, okay. All right.
All right. Well, thank you for your ghost story.
No problem. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So, once again, the phone lines are open. You can call in, share your ghost stories like Bill and Nicole did. Don't be afraid. I mean, they called in. So don't be afraid to call in and share your ghost stories. I am here till midnight in Central Time Zone, 10 o'clock on the West Coast, 1 a.m. on the East Coast. So don't worry, I'm here, and I would love to hear your ghost stories. Of course, these ghost stories will only appear here on the show. I will not write a blog or anything like that and interpret it my own way. No, it's just going to be on this show. And if anybody goes to the show and listens to this, these stories are sole property of the callers, so you do not have permission to use them in any kind of form. I'll let the listeners know that, because any ghost story that I share is, or the listeners share, is their own story or something like that. So it's their sole property. Now, before we get into the commercial break, I'm going to read another quick story here before we go to the break. And let me do this real quick. Let me get over to where the commercial breaks are, so that way I'm ready to hit it when I'm ready. All right, so this one, the story is That's Right. And it says, I was at a slumber party in 8th grade with a few of my friends when we decided to, stupidly, to have a seance in our unfinished basement. We were having fun and giggling as we were trying to figure out who to summon when someone suggested Jack the Ripper. And I immediately got a pit in my stomach. No, I spoke up. We shouldn't summon something evil. That's right, called a man's voice from the other side of the cellar. There were no boys or men there. We were home alone. Another girl and myself heard it. And this person says, I'll never be the same. For something like that, I say it was probably their spirit guide. Tell them, do not do something stupid like this. But again, I don't know if these are true or not. I'm just reading them from the web, just so that way I can fill in time. But like I said, the phone lines are open if you want to call into the show, and also pop into the chat. Go to Spreaker.com, click on the show, and hit the little chat bubble. You can get to the Spreaker chat. I interact with the listeners. I will let people know who's in the chat. Of course, I won't read their last name. The only reason why I mentioned Bill and Nicole's last name is because they were on the show last night, and I mentioned their last names last night. So, but for anybody that wants to call in, like I said, you can remain anonymous, or you can, or just tell me your first name. Keep the stories to no more than 5 minutes at the most. And yeah, just call in. I mean, the phone lines are open. I'm here. All right, so we're going to go into a quick commercial break, but we'll be back with more of your Ghost Talk Open Lines.
Voices in my head know me, call me. I will be restless. Somehow they chose me. This is my nightlife. Wanna be high life. I feel so reckless, calling them all night. I'm calling.
Are you a ghost hunter or paranormal enthusiast and need equipment to go out and investigate locations that have spirit activity? Well, GhostStop.com has all the equipment that you will need. They have a Boo Buddy ghost hunting kit for $169.95, or how about a Keep Calm and Ghost Hunt t-shirt for $19.95. Click on the banner ad at the top of the Talking Tonight website and get shopping today. GhostStop.com, your one-stop shop for all your ghost hunting needs. Do you have a paranormal team? Are you a small-time author? Do you have a radio show that you would like to promote? Is there anything that you would like to get the word out there about but don't have a big budget? Well, Talking Tonight has an opportunity for you to sponsor the show without breaking your wallet. Contact the show at talkingtonight@outlook.com or on the show's website or Facebook page for more details. Do you think you have a haunted or cursed object? Well, Nicole Gaspard does, and in her book Haunted Vessels and Cursed Objects, she talks about her continued paranormal and supernatural ghost encounters, haunted dolls, and other items that are supposed to be haunted or cursed. Pick up your copy today on Amazon.com.
I've called 1,000 times to tell you I'm sorry for everything that I've done, but when I call you, never seem to be home. Hello from the outside.
To call into the show, Skype Talking the Night, or by phone at 817-717-5561. And now back to Talking the Night with more of your open line phone calls. And of course, we are back with more of this Halloween special ghost talk. Don't be afraid to call in and share your ghost stories. The phone lines are open if you want to call in. The number to call in is by Skype at Talking the Night, or by phone at 817-717-5561. Now, also, if you got like spirit activity going on right now, would you? Feel free to call in and share that experience too. Because tonight, the veil between our world and the spirit's world is at its thinnest. That is when the spirits find it the easiest to come through, no matter the location. Now, as I mentioned that earlier, I did a reading for Nicole, who won the reading last week and everything like that. For Halloween night, that I might run another promotion like that maybe in the future. Of course, it won't be on All Hallows Eve on Halloween night, but you'll still get a reading. I'll probably do that at a later time. Of course, this Friday night, you have a chance to win Nicole Gaspard's book, Dark Pathways. Now, I will post on the page about what time I'm doing the contest on the show and everything like that. So, but I'm not going to give away the question because that would give you time to research. You must listen to this whole week because I could ask any question about any of these shows this week. If you miss a show, you might not win. That's okay, Bill. You're not you and Nicole are not eligible to win. Just because you guys were on the show and everything like that. So you might already know. Well, I know Nicole would know the answer, but I'm sure you'll know the answer too, Bill. So you two are not eligible, but anybody else listening to the show is eligible to win a copy of Nicole's book, Dark Pathways. And of course, I will mention this. It will be done after the first commercial break on Friday night. I will ask a question, and you must call in to win. If you pop in the chat room and answer the question there, you are not eligible to win. You must call in. Because this is a call-in show. Now, I will respond to the chat for other things, but as far as contests like that, you must call in to win. And Nicole's asking me a question here in the chat. Of course, it doesn't have to do with tonight. So yeah, you must call into the show to win it on Friday night. Now, again, like I said, the phone lines are open. The numbers to call in are 951, not 951, sorry. By phone at 817-717-5561, or you can search for my Skype name, Talking the Night, and that will get you on the air if you got Skype. So feel free to call into the show. I am on the air live now, and I want to hear your ghost stories, whether they're happy, funny, or even downright scary. Now, on Monday night, we were talking about the darker side of the paranormal, and I'm going to get into this story here. Demon in the Dark says, my family traveled to the south of France to stay in a cottage owned by someone my dad worked with. The owner visited occasionally, but that summer it was free and we had 10 days booked in there. After a long 2 days on the road, we drove down a steep driveway towards a secluded mill cottage with the water wheel static alongside the stone house. There was a deep cellar with stone stairs down under the wheel next to the house, and a small river circled that place. We went into the house and chose rooms, but we sat down in a small corpse. The house was drafty and cold from a lack of use. We settled in and turned all of the heating on, yet the house remained cold and felt damp. The first night we had set a fire in the living room and listened to a couple audiobooks before my sister and I went to sleep. My parents stayed up a little longer, then went to bed. Around midnight, they both woke up at exactly the same time, and the door to their bedroom was opening slowly. At first, they thought it was my sister until they saw a large, dark silhouette of a man framed in the doorway, standing stock still, just looking in their direction as if appraising them. After a short period, the shape turned and started to move, as if satisfied, and disappeared. They looked at each other but didn't speak, and both went back to sleep. The next morning, the house felt warm and dry. The sunlight was back through the windows, as if something had lifted and accepted them. They spoke the next day, and both agreed, although they were skeptics, they could not have been anything other than something supernatural in that doorway deciding their worth. Now, of course, the title of this story, Demon in the Dark, doesn't really, the story doesn't mention about demons, so yeah, I don't know what that was all about, but I mean, if you have a ghost story like that, feel free to call into the show. The chat room is open. The phone lines are open. I want to hear your calls. I want to hear your ghost stories, because tonight is Halloween, when the veil between our world and the spirit world is at its thinnest. And it's the best time for ghost stories of any other time. Now, I'll tell you one of my ghost stories in a moment, but for anybody that's ever gone on a camping trip and everything like that, and you tell spooky ghost stories at night, maybe local legends of the area, whether they be true or not, that's what I want to hear on the show. They don't have to be true, but if you got a great story, I want to hear that. But if it's true, that makes it even better, especially on a night like tonight. So feel free to call in. Phone lines are open. The chat room is open. If you want to type it in the chat, you're welcome to do so. I'll read it there. But it's actually better for a call to come in and hear that ghost story. So again, the numbers to call it in are 817-717-5561, or search for the Skype name Talk in the Night, and I will get you on the air. So let's get into one of my ghost stories. Many of them. I got many ghost stories, being in the field a very long time. And I believe I mentioned this ghost story on my show before. But there was, and this is going to go to the spookier side of things a little bit. Might send chills down your spine. But there was a house in Montclair that I was investigating. Actually, I believe I did bring it up on Monday night when I was talking to Sylvia Schultz. But there was a house in Montclair, California. That's all I'm going to give you on the location. The house was up for sale. The clients were selling the house, but they called us in because of a few things. One is somebody in the house used the Ouija board, which again is not bad. It's just the intent put into it, but they put that wrong intent into it. And I was called in to cleanse the home. Well, when we got there, I told everybody to stay outside the room for their safety while I was doing what I was doing, but to stay just outside the door just in case they had to rush in and pull me out of there. everything like that. So I went into this room, started doing what I do as far as cleansing the room. And I had no problems, but the people outside the room saw this dark gray mist run from that room to the next room. And it did it every single room until I cleansed the whole house. And it was running from me. It did not like the bright white light that I projected. But I'm going to get to the creepy part about this story, which doesn't have to do with the darker side, but I mean, it will send chills down your spine if you actually think about it. So once I was done cleansing the home, getting rid of this darker entity, the client wanted us to get a hold of the grandfather that had died in the house because they wanted closure before they sold the house and moved on with their lives. Well, of course, this was in August, and the temperatures out in Southern California that year were still 105 degrees at 5 p.m. Now, of course, the house had no electricity because the house was being sold. So you can imagine how warm it got inside that house. Well, we were inside a room that was probably about 10 by 12, something like that. Not a very big room. And, of course, 15 to 20 of us inside the room. I'm guessing about 15, 20 of us inside the room. This small 10 by 12 room. The windows were closed. The doors were closed. And of course, the heat from everybody's bodies as well as the heat outside, it probably felt like 120 degrees in there. Well, we stayed in there. The family asked questions. They brought trigger objects to communicate with the grandfather. Now, of course, the whole time I stood there, I really didn't say anything because it was up to the family to ask the questions and get the answers from the grandfather. But once it was done, the family asked me to help the grandfather move on into the light, which I have done and I can do it again. But mind you, the temperature inside that room was about 120 degrees. Or at least it felt like that. Now, when I opened up the doorway to the spirit world, to the light where the grandfather could cross over, of course, I was the only one that saw this bright light opening up behind me. But as soon as that was open, the grandfather used my energy to pass on into that spirit realm. And people, even across the room from me, felt this cold blast of air come off of me like I was an air conditioner in a room that had no electricity, and it was just blasting as cold as it could get. Now, the people across from me felt that very cold blast come off of me. Now, somebody had one of those thermal guns to check the temperature. And again, the room temperature was around 120, 150, 120 degrees with everybody in there. So you would not expect what would happen next. But the temperature dropped all the way down to 70 degrees. Mind you, it was still 105 degrees outside. That room had no electricity, no air conditioning running because of no electricity. So that cold blast came off of me and instantly cooled the room down to 70 degrees. So that is one of the many ghost stories that I have that I can share with you. I got so many that I can share with you. But tonight is your night, the listener's night, to call in and share your ghost stories and stuff like that. I mean, it don't have to be spooky. It can be a funny ghost story. Like my first experience with the paranormal, seeing a little boy on top of the refrigerator with a ball, and instead of me getting scared, I wanted to play with the boy and the ball because I was young. I was like a new friend for me. So that's kind of an idea about the funnier side of things. But there are those creepy times, like I mentioned, and then there are those happy times when a family member comes through. Now, again, before I got into tonight's open line, I I read that story up on the Talk of the Night website, and if anybody that works in Disneyland and wants to call in and share their stories on what I read in the story of the day, feel to do so. Even if you're one of the people that has done it before, I would love to hear that. And for anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about because they might have tuned in late, go to talkingthenight.weebly.com and read the story for yourself. It's up there, and there's more by clicking on the link, but it's about people spreading their ashes of their loved ones at Disneyland. Yes, it does happen. And the Wall Street Journal finally confirmed that with Disneyland, but I've heard that story many, many moons ago. Now, many years ago about that. And even when I was a kid, I would hear about stories like that. And only because I had an interest in the paranormal, that's why I heard those stories. So it does happen with people wanting to spread their loved ones' ashes, especially in the haunted mansion. Like the haunted mansion is, well, the haunted mansion is haunted at Disneyland, as well as some other sites at Disneyland are actually haunted. Of course, they won't mention about a lot of them, but yes, the park is haunted. So again, the phone lines are open, 817-717-5561, or search for the Skype name Talk of the Night, and you can call into the show. Phone lines are open. So feel free to call in. Let's get into one more quick story before we go to the break at the top of the hour. And let's see if I can find a quick one here. All right. Okay, the title of this one is Theater. I Hardly Knew Her, or Know Her. In college, I was part of our drama club, and we used a 100-plus-year-old opera house in downtown Bedford, Maine, as our theater. So I was alone doing work on the set for our next show, And of course, being in a theater alone, it's creepy as it gets anyways. This theater was old enough to have wooden walkways above the stage that went from one side to the other. As I am painting, I could have sworn I heard someone run across them multiple times. I tried to block it out, but it was nearly impossible. Just as I am about to finish, I hear something fall from above the stage. Even though I could not find anything, it convinced me enough that I was done for the day. Apparently, there's this story of a ghost of an opera singer that died there on Halloween. Before that, I never believed in ghosts. So, yes, I've heard stories like that, and some of that stuff could be made up and stuff like that. So, I mean, but that right there is an example that of what I want to hear from your ghost stories. Now, let me get back here. Let's see. All right. Once again, the chat room is open. We're almost at the commercial break. So if you're listening to the show, feel free to call in, share your stories, experience it, or not experience. I'm so used to doing that on Friday night, but I want to hear your ghost stories tonight. This is Halloween night, when the spookiest night of the year, and it is a perfect time for ghost stories. So call in, share your stories, whether they're funny, happy ones, or even downright scary. So we're almost at the commercial break here. And let's see. Sorry. I had to yawn. I tried to sleep a little bit earlier after I got off my day job, and I did, but I'm still a little bit tired. This weather, here in North Texas, it was raining today, but yesterday it was nice and sunny. So this weather is taking its toll on me. Anybody else want the rain? We've had enough. But yes, tonight is all about ghost stories. So I want to hear your ghost stories. Don't leave me hanging. Call in. Bill and Nicole have already called in and shared theirs. But I want to hear your call. All right. So we're going to take the second commercial break here, and we'll be right back after this short commercial break, and back with more of your open line ghost stories.
My head is heavy, let me lay it down. Into your lap I would love to drown. I need that story I used to hear, to run on into and disappear. I won't lie down and I won't, I won't lie down, and I can't do this without you. I won't lie down and I won't, I won't lie down, and I can't do this without you. Your stories, they come from the heart. Glue me together and tear me apart.
Do you have a talk radio, Facebook Live, or YouTube show and would like guests for your show but don't know where to go to get them? Well, go to radioguestlist.com and sign up today. They have all different experts in different fields, and you can find the ones that are just right for your show. That's RadioGuestList.com. Sign up today. It's free.
If you like finding out about different things in the paranormal field, such as ghost stories, haunted locations, UFOs, cryptozoology, and much more, well, check out Into the Paranormal on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Videos are posted once a week. To read about the story of Giant Rock and see the trailer of Giant Rock the movie, just click on the link on the Talk of the Night website and it'll take you right there. GiantRockTheMovie.com. Call into the show, Skype Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-5561. And now back to Talk in the Night with more of your open line phone calls. Okay, and we are back with more ghost talk. And once again, as you heard, the phone lines are open. The numbers to call in, Skype Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-5561. Don't be afraid to call in and share your stories, as I want to hear them all. Don't make me do all the talking tonight. As you can hear, my voice is starting to go and everything like that, but I love doing this show. I love talking and telling you experiences and stuff like that and these type of stories. But you can listen to me all day, but I want to hear your side of the story. All right, so let's get into another story here, and this one is a little more terrifying. It's called The Cell Phone. And hold on one sec before I just wanted to see something real quick. Before I read this story, I wanted to check that. The story is called The Cell Phone. A couple of months ago, my friend's cousin, a single mother, bought a new cell phone. After a long day of work, she came home, placed her phone on the counter, and went to watch TV. Her son came to her and asked if he could play with her new phone. She told him not to call anyone or mess with text message, and he agreed. At around 11:20, she was drowsy, so she decided to tuck her son in and go to bed. She walked up to his room and saw that he wasn't there. She then ran over to her room to find him sleeping on her bed with a phone in his hand. Relieved, she picked her phone back up from his hand and inspected it. Browsing through it, she noticed only minor changes such as a new background, banner, etc. But then she opened up her saved pictures. she began deleting the pictures he had taken until only one new picture remained. When she first saw it, she was in disbelief. It was her son sleeping on her bed, but the picture was taken by someone else above him, and it showed the left half of an elderly woman's face. Now, there is a creepy ghost story for you. And those are the kind of creepy ghost stories that I want to hear on tonight's show. So feel free to call in, share those type of stories, share your stories, and I'll get into another one of my stories tonight too, just so that way you know I'm sharing some of mine. So if I can share mine, so can you. So let's get into another terrifying one. Let's find a good one here. All right, The Rocking Horse is the title of this ghost story. And like I said, phone lines are open if you want to call in to the show and ask me, or not ask me. I'm thinking of Friday night open lines. I'm so used to doing just open lines on Friday night, not on Halloween night. Because I think last year I wasn't on the air on Halloween night. No, matter of fact, I know I wasn't because I was out scaring the shit out of people. Because that's what I love doing on Halloween. But I wanted to do this ghost talk for you, the listeners, so that way you could hear these ghost stories or share your own. And this show is about you, the listeners. Not just me, not just the guests that I have on the show. It's about the listeners, because you, the listeners, are the ones that make me keep going on the show. Without you, the listeners, there is no show. I can have all the guests on all I want, and yeah, if I don't have the listeners tuning in to the show, then I don't have a show. So thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the show. Let me see something here. I just wanted to see something, but yeah, the numbers to call in are Talking the Night by Skype or by phone at 817-717-5561. Okay, let's see. Nicole has another one. Bill remind me, not only I gotten sick from watching a friend of ours live, I also saw something in the mirror that he was using. Okay, if you want to call in, Nicole, feel free to call in and share it, because it doesn't look like anybody else is brave enough to call in besides you and Bill. So go ahead and call in and share that story. And while we wait for her to call in, like I said, as soon as we're done with her call, I will read that Rocking Horse one. So let's see here. All right. So, yeah, I do interact with the listeners in the chat room. And again, thank you, listeners. You're the ones that make this show. But be sure to tell your friends about the show. So let's go to Skype here and answer the call. You're on the air with Talking the Night.
Hi, Matt.
Okay, so what was the story that you were mentioning about in the chat room?
Yeah, Bill just reminded me that one of my friends, I fled, He was with me last night, I think. But he does live like readings with the ICC staff.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill reminded me that not only did I see something in the mirror, but I had gotten affected by it. You know, like got sick afterwards. I was sick for a couple of days afterwards.
So, what did you see in the mirror?
It was like a dark shadow person.
So it did have a figure and everything like that.
No, just a dark shadow.
Or was it just like a blurry shadow?
Yeah, blurry shadow.
Okay, now was the person facing that was live, was they facing the mirror or anything like that? Any backlighting that could have possibly given that shadow?
And I don't remember. I don't know if Bill remembers if he was watching that too.
Because, I mean, if it's a blurry shadow, it could be backlighting, as much as I hate to say something like that, but it could be just backlighting from the person and everything like that. Now, if the shadow was more defined and the person was off to the side of the mirror, then, yeah, I can see something paranormal with that. But as far as a blurry one, yeah. But regardless, I mean, that's just my opinion because I wasn't there to see it. So I can't tell you whether or not what you saw was actually a shadow person. So thank you for your story. That was definitely an interesting one. Now, again, listeners, if you got any calls like this or anything and you want to share them, call into the show. So thank you again, Nicole.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so just call into the show and share them. Okay, so Bill said he's seen red eyes. Again, I can't. I'm not going to try to answer any people's or analyze people's stories like I did there. I'm sorry, Nicole. Didn't mean to analyze it. I just that's just the investigator in me that wants to analyze stuff like that. But I apologize on that. And if you want to call into the show, I won't do that again. But I want to hear your stories like that, and because this is a night for ghost stories. So let's get into that next terrifying story, the rocking horse. And again, the phone lines are open, so feel free to call into the show. Okay, so the rocking horse. One night when I was maybe 10 to 12 years old, I had trouble falling asleep. My bedroom was the entire top floor of our house, with my bed and such being on the left side and storage closets and play area being on the right. I was lying in bed when I heard a noise from the other side of the room and see a rocking horse begin to rock. It was sitting just outside one of the storage closet doors. It proceeded to rock its way halfway across the room and stopped dead under the ceiling light. At this point, I was freaked out and just buried my head under the blankets and never peeked out again until morning. It was all confirmed to not be a dream, as the rocking horse was still in the middle of the room when I woke up. Furthermore, I got a stern reprimand from my parents for being up out of bed playing with my toys well past my bedtime. Their bedroom was directly below the storage closet play area that had heard the creaking of the rocking horse shuffling across the room. Now, again, another great story. I mean, and of course, that is the kind of stories that are made for Halloween night. And everything like that. Now, if I didn't love scaring people so much or doing this show on Halloween night like I'm doing here, I would probably host a Halloween party where it's just ghost stories. Just because the whole creepiness and stuff, the creepy factor is what makes this night so great. Now, let's get into another one of my stories. And this one actually happened next door to the Omen House in Beverly Hills. And he had rented out the house for people to, if they wanted to pay for a night for a ticket to investigate his house and that house and stay in that second house, which was there on the night of the Manson murders. People were welcome to buy tickets. But nobody bought tickets to stay in the house. And since I live 60 miles away from David's house, me and our psychic Lilia decided to spend the night in that house. Now, of course, Lilia had gone to bed earlier in the night, about 2 a.m. once the tours wrapped up, the ghost investigation tours wrapped up. So she went to bed before me. She was sleeping on the lower level of that home. And, of course, in this home, there was one room that was completely surrounded by mirrors on, I believe, 3 walls. It might have been all 4 walls, but at least 3 walls was completely covered by mirrors. Nobody liked to go into that room, but when David told me, you can pick out any room you want to stay in if you want to stay there, so you don't have to drive back and then come back. And, of course, I had to pick the room full of mirrors. Just because I found it interesting. Call me crazy, call me what you want, but that's the room I wanted to stay in. Now, here's where the creepy part comes in. Like I said, Lilia had gone to bed about 2 in the morning because it was her on the lower level. I was on the second floor, which was right above the room that she was staying in. And this all goes back to that, talking about that one loud neighbors upstairs kind of thing. Now, of course, this room was carpeted, but you could hear people walking on the hardwood floors like out in the hallway if you heard that. Well, Lilia, I went to bed about 5 in the morning because I was staying up talking to David that night after the tours and helping him shut down everything like that. So I didn't get to bed till 5 in the morning. Well, about 8 in the morning, when Lilia finally woke up, I didn't wake up until almost noon. But at 8 in the morning, she heard walking in the room that I was staying in, right above her room. Again, it sounded like it was walking on hardwood floor, but that room was carpeted. I did not get out of bed. I did not move anything that I had in there that I brought with me. Nothing like that. And of course, Lilia never saw anything. When she left the house, she didn't even wake me up. She let me sleep. But I stayed in the room that had all the mirrors. Not one night, but 2 nights in that room. And I would have loved to seen video of what might have happened in there. But unfortunately, the cameras that we had set up in that room, since I was sleeping in there, I covered the cameras because I didn't want anybody catching an eyeful as I went to the bathroom to take a shower or anything like that. So I didn't want that on YouTube. But I probably should have, when I went to bed, I probably should have uncovered the camera just to capture whatever it was. But that was definitely an interesting night. And that's the kind of, again, that's the kind of ghost stories I want to hear tonight. I want to hear the creepiest ghost stories you can imagine. Because, again, tonight, All Hallows Eve, Halloween night, Samhain, when the veil between our world and the spirit world is at its thinnest, this makes for a great night for ghost stories. And especially if you got that weather that we had here in Fort Worth today, where it was cold, windy, rainy, thunderstorms. Those are the perfect nights to stay in and tell ghost stories. And I want to hear you share your ghost stories. So feel free to call into the show. The show numbers to call in are Talk in the Night by Skype or by phone at 817-717-5561. All right, so we got time for maybe 1 or 2 more ghost stories. If you want to call in and share with me and the listeners, feel free to do so. Here's a quick one. It says, Annie96 is typing. This is much more of an interactive experience than anything else on the list. As you read through this, what app conversation you have to manually click enter to make each new message appear. It's as close to text-based horror movie you'll find. Okay, now that I might actually have to try. Not, of course, while I'm on the air, but I might actually have to try something like that just to see what it is. To me, that sounds interesting. Let's get into this one. The Whispers. This is a story I do not often tell. I promise sincerely that this has scared me or scarred me for life. And although I have looked into psychological explanations for what I heard and natural explanations for what occurred, they remain unsatisfactory. When I was a child, I was scared of the dark. I swore to my mother I heard voices in it. They were not evil, but they were not familiar, and so they scared me. It was not uncommon in the middle of the night for me to wake up and hear whispers, as I would call them when asking my mom. When she figured they were just bumps in the night and typical kid nightmare material, I tried often to explain to her that it was more than that, and that they sounded different from one another the way people's voices do. On some nights, I would get so scared from these whispers that I would sleep in my mom's bed with her. It was an added bonus that the bathroom was directly outside her bedroom door for my late night tinkles. I should add at this point that when walking out into the hall to go to the bathroom, you look directly down the stairs that would lead you into my living room on the first floor, as my mom's bedroom was on the second floor. On one such night around Christmas, I woke and felt the need to relieve myself. I walked out from the door and distinctly heard the phrase, "Look," and to my astonishment, a red light, almost like a spotlight, was cast upon the wall at the very bottom of the stairs. The light had no other source. It was by itself and was transfixed by, and I was transfixed by it. Being a little kid, it only being a few days from Christmas, I knew what the light was. It was Santa. How else could he get into my house and know I was being a good boy? I was so excited I began walking down the stairs to greet him, picking up my pace after the second step as it began to creep off the wall and fade into the darkness in my living room. That's when I heard him, a very strong masculine voice, different from the first, not at all like my father's. Not to say that he isn't masculine, it was just distinctly different. It said, "Stop right now. Go back up the stairs." I listened, turned around, and what happened next, I'm not sure I would believe if someone had told me the same story. After reaching the top of the stairs, I heard a very loud crash that sent me running back to my mother's bed, where I jumped straight under the covers and stayed there the whole night. When we woke the next morning, the poinsettia light, little Christmas flower light that glowed red, my mother had put on the railing down the stairs were pulled straight down to the bottom of the stairs. Some broke from what seemed like a forceful tear, laying in a small single pile. The dry sink in my living room had fallen from the wall. My mother could not explain it. My father was worried we had been the victims of a home invasion. My sister was crying. There was nothing missing. Nobody had broke in. There didn't seem to be any reason this had to happen. And then I saw it, and I kept quiet about it, and because I was so afraid that I could not force words out of my mouth. There on the edge of the wooden dry sink, which had been facing up, were 3 indentations where the finish on the wood had been worn, almost as if a forceful grip, something down there, had grabbed it and threw it down. That was what the bang was. I was mortified. After that day, I heard a single voice again. Or never heard a single voice again. I do not like to imagine what was waiting downstairs for me that night, if it was anything at all. But I can tell you that the reality was that something had physically acted upon two things in my house near the bottom of the stairwells. After this, I never heard another whisper again, which is sad because in some ways I would have liked to thank the masculine energy that had stopped me from going down the stairs. This happened when I was 7. I am 20 years old now, and because of this incident, I am still afraid of the dark, especially shadowy stairwells. Okay, so that was a longer story here. So we are at the last commercial break here of the night. So phone lines are open. Call in to the show after the commercial break and share your ghost story. We'll be right back. Just for Talking the Night listeners, go to vibrationalenergy.com and mention Talking the Night to receive a 10% discount off either a 30-minute intuitive spiritual reading or spiritual clarity session via phone or Skype with Debbie Anderson. Just click on the link on the Talking the Night website. If you would like the book, Proof of Survival by Mike Cavalli, which is available on Lulu.com and Amazon.com, go to Facebook.com/Sacred Circle Community and mention Talking the Night to get free shipping on the book. Just click on the link on the Talking the Night website. When you go to JamesGordJr.com and subscribe to his free monthly Mind Power and Money Enzyme, you will get a free PDF copy of his book, Attract Money Forever. Just click on the link on the Talking the Night website for more information.
Dark night, all alone, I hear noises, but no one's home, so I walk out of my bedroom, looking around, don't know what to find, I'm freaking out, can't sleep anymore, gotta watch out. I hear knocks at the door, maybe it's paranormal activity, or am I just...
To call into the show, Skype Talking the Night, or by phone at 817-717-5561 And now back to Talking the Night with more of your open line phone calls. Okay, and we are back, and I forgot to change the commercial breaks for the open line, so it was playing the previous week's thing. So I want to mention on the air before we get into any more phone calls or anything like that about the ads that were supposed to play during the commercial break for the third commercial break. And that is, of course, for Talking the Night listeners, get 25% off a pet psychic reading by Crystal Hope Reed. When you go to crystalhopereed.com and click on for a pet psychic reading, you can get 25% off. If you subscribe to Sylvia Schultz YouTube channel, Lights Out, the Farmhouse Fiend, and mention Talking the Night, you have a chance to win a copy of her book, Hunting Demons, and also Spirits of Christmas. And of course, the last one, on the Talking the Night website, you can pick up a copy of Nicole's book, Dark Pathway, by clicking on the banner ad. But this Friday night, I am going to run a contest where you, the listeners, can call in, and if you answer the question correctly, you will get the book. But you must be listening to all the shows this week to have a chance to win. So, again, the phone lines are open. The number to call in is 817-717-5561 or by Skyping my Skype name, Talking the Night. So if you got a call, feel free to call in, share your stories. They don't have to be real because, like I said, tonight is a night for ghost stories, regardless if they're real or not. Now, the ones that I am sharing, I can guarantee you they are real, but everybody's got their own opinion, their own thoughts. So let's leave it at the criticism of the stories and whether we think they're real or not to ourselves. So if you want to call in, share your ghost stories, real or not, phone lines are now open for the next 20 minutes, or actually about 15 minutes, because at 5 minutes till, I'm going to mention what we got coming up the rest of the week. So you got 15 minutes to call into the show and share your ghost stories. Please make sure that the calls are no more than 5 minutes long. So let's get into another ghost story here. And like I said, the phone lines are open. You can call in and share it. And I'm just typing in the chat room. Like I said, I interact with the listeners. I don't often type in there, but when I see somebody in there, I will, especially if I'm talking, because I have a hard time talking and typing at the same time, because I like to think of what I'm typing, and I say it out loud a lot of times. So that's why I could never work in the office is typing stuff, because I would end up typing up probably some people's personal information, and I don't want that happening. Excuse me. And of course, before we head out tonight, I'm going to share with you one more story of mine, true ghost story. So if you want to call in, phone lines are now open. So unless we get a call, let's read this story, Kitchen Nightmares. And no, this is not the Gordon Ramsay Kitchen Nightmares. This is actually a ghost story. Now, it says, okay, get ready for this story. So I was closing up the bar one night after a long shift. I was carrying a rack of glasses into the kitchen. I slipped on the wet floor and I just mopped. Fell on the floor and let out an instinctual ah. Immediately after, as I was sitting on the wet floor, I heard a low-pitched moan. Okay, we'll finish up that call in a sec, or that story in a second. Let's answer this call. You're on the air on Talking Tonight. Who's calling?
It's Bill again, Phil.
Hey, Bill.
All right. Hey, I got a ghost story for you, but it's not true. It's just, a normal ghost story for everybody. I wanted to share. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Like I said, tonight is the night for ghost stories, whether they're real or not.
All right, cool. Well, it's about it's a place. It's about a man with a hook. He had a hook. All right. It was a guy that was a janitory guy. He worked at a high school as a janitorial guy. He was doing his normal errands. He went outside. He saw a guy out there doing something he didn't know what he was doing. He looked like he was trashing around in the back of his truck. He had a truck outside. And he went up to the guy, and he says, I'm sorry to bother you, sir, but what are you doing? And he's like, nothing. Don't worry about it. Mind your own business. And he says, this is my business. This is where I work at. What are you doing? Here and everything else. He says, you're not allowed to be on a property. So the guy says, hey, don't worry about it. Everything's cool. Just leave me in peace and let me be. And he says, and he's like, well, what's going on? And the guy, the janitorial guy, saw blood on his truck inside it. And this guy had a hook. And his hook had blood on it. Okay? And then after that, he says, okay. And he's looked at the janitorial guy like, okay, something's going on here. So he's looking, and then he saw a deer inside the bag. And then after that, he heard something kick in the other. He had a couple bags in there. Somebody kicked out, and it looked like a leg. And then he freaked out. The guys, and then the guy looked at him, and then after that, he says, okay, sir. And then he got shaky and white and pale. And he said, okay, sir, you're free to go. There's no problem. I don't want no problem either. You're ready. You can just go. There's no problem. And he said, thank you, sir. So the guy looked in his truck, and he didn't see, I guess he didn't see the leg, but the janitorial guy did. He closed the truck in the back. He took off. He called the police officer station stating it, and he gave the license plates, saw the license plates and everything else when the guy took off. And the police officers came. He says, okay, we'll do an investigation. He told the police officer what happened and everything else. The other police officer went down to the house. They saw the guy in his house dragging something through the garage. And after that, the guy says, hey, what are you doing, sir? And he said, nothing, don't worry about it. The man pulls out with the hook. He said, don't worry about it. And the guy says, well, can I check your stuff? He's like, no, you cannot. You don't have permission. He's like, oh, yes, well, I'm a police officer. I have permission, the right to do my investigation. So he's like, well, I'm doing it anyway. So back off, sir. I'm checking your bags. So after that, the guy opens a bag. He saw the deer. And he had a bag he opened up. He found a head that was cut off.
Wow.
And the legs that were chopped up. And after that, the guy raised up his hook and was going to launch at the police officer. The police officer fired a couple times in the air. Other police officers showed up. They finally, before he was wrestling with the other guy, and all the other police officers got there on foot, and the other guy came up and he saw. So they launched the guy down, and they caught them, and they arrested him, and then they opened up all the bags together, and they saw nothing but bodies, and they looked in his house. They found heads in jars, eyeballs, livers, fingers, all that stuff, all in his household. And he was actually cooking people and eating them.
Wow. Almost sounds like that urban legend, The Hook, mixed in with Hannibal Lecter type stuff. But that's definitely a great Halloween story. Definitely a story that is great to tell around a campfire or even on Halloween night. So thank you again for your story, Bill. And,
no problem.
And if you got a call, feel free to call in. We got about 10 minutes left for you to call in and share your story, your ghost stories and stuff like that, and everything like that. I'm going to finish off this story, and I will read, or I'll tell you one more of my ghost stories if we have time. Or if you call in, I will take your call over this story and my story and everything like that. So you got one last chance to call in to the show, share your ghost story and everything like that. So let's finish this one. Kitchen nightmares. It says, immediately after I was sitting on the wet floor, I heard a low-pitched moan. It was so audible that I actually thought it was a real person. This was startling considering I was the only person left in the bar. I stood up, completely frozen, and yelled, "Hello." Again, immediately I hear the same low-pitched moan, except this time it was louder. Now I'm starting to freak out a little bit, but for whatever reason, I decided to walk closer to where I heard the sound coming from, and I yelled very loudly, "Hello!" For the third time, I now hear a very loud, low-pitched moan. That was it for me. I ran it back into the kitchen, grabbed my biggest kitchen knife I could find, because that seemed logical at the time. Grabbed my purse, ran out the door, and never looked back. Now, of course, if it is a spirit, you're not going to do nothing with a knife. So, but if you're scared, yeah, you might do something like that. Okay, so finishing off the story, it was funny trying to explain to the chef the next day why he was missing a knife during the morning prep. The creepiest part, I come to find out that there was some sort of accident that had occurred in the restaurant years before with the son of the owner, and word around town was that he died right there in the bar. So that is another creepy ghost story. Like I said, you got 5 minutes left to call in and share your ghost stories. And I mean, they can be real, they can be fake, like the one Bill mentioned. But I got time for one call. If you call in now, I will get you on the air. Once I get to that 5-minute mark till we get off the air, there will be no more calls coming in. So let me tell you about, and I will stop my story if anybody calls in, but this is going to be my last story to tell you. And of course, everything I'm telling you is completely true. Now, this is not the creepiest, but it is definitely something that to this day, even with knowing my abilities, I can never explain. or at least never explained to somebody that don't know what about the paranormal. And of course, I've mentioned this on the show before, but going back out to the Ullman house again for this story is the very first time I went out to the Ullman house. I knew nothing of the location other than the murders happened down at the end of the drive. Of course, David wasn't doing tours at the time. We were the first ones to kind of investigate it since the TV shows had been there. And like I said, I knew nothing other than the murders happened down at the end of the drive. Well, driving there, and of course, I wasn't driving. I was doing the navigation. My friend Steve was doing the driving. Well, 40 miles away from where David Ullman's house sits, I was looking at the map. I decided to zoom in on David's house and that location just to see, just because we didn't want to get lost. And as soon as I pulled up that section on the map, I saw this big portal opening right in, well, not quite right in front of David's house, but next to his house where another house was being built at the time. And, of course, I saw this. I'm trying to show Steve driving 40 miles away from the location, doing 80 miles per hour of the freeway. I'm trying to show him there's a portal right here. Well, he's like, of course, I can't look at it now. Tell me when we get there. I tell him when we get there what I saw. I point out the exact spot that I saw on the map and told him everything that I saw, where there was a big opening right there where the spirits were coming through. And you definitely could feel the pressure change in that location. Well, he told me to tell David when he came out what I had actually saw on the map. Of course, David looked perplexed, and it's like, okay. And I think he asked Steve, does he know anything of this location? And, of course, he said, no, just that the murders happened down at the end of the drive. That's all he wanted to know. Well, it turns out in that same exact spot that I pointed out 40 miles away was when that house next door to David's was being built. And this was back in 2013, I believe. The last part of 2013 in November. There was only a foundation, not the whole house that is there now. And he said when that house foundation was being laid, construction workers were there, and a 5-gallon bucket full of water the construction workers had sitting on the side of the road tipped uphill, which is impossible. Now, if it's going to tip, it's going to go to the downside of things, not towards the upside of the hill. But this same exact spot that I pointed out on the map is the same exact spot where that bucket of water tipped uphill. Now, I knew nothing of the location again, except for the murders happened down the drive. So I hope you enjoyed these ghost stories. We got 5 minutes left in the show. Friday night, we'll have open lines again where you, the listeners, can call in, share your stories, experiences, and everything like that. But as we get near the end of the night and the veil is, again, at its thinnest. This is a perfect night for spirit communication and everything like that. So, let me let you know what we got coming up for Talking Tonight the rest of this week. Of course, tomorrow night, we're going to be joined by my guest, Crystal Reed, as we talk about animal communication, how to psychically connect with your animals, and get to understand what they might be thinking. And then, of course, like I mentioned, Friday night is open lines where you can call in, share your stories, experiences, and questions. Of course, tonight was just about ghost stories, but Friday night, it's open to any topic. It don't have to be ghosts, don't have to be paranormal even. It can be any kind of thing that you want to talk about. It's Friday night open lines where you, the listeners, get to call in and share those stories, experiences, and even ask a question. Next week's shows will be posted this weekend sometime. I don't know if I'll get to it by Friday or not. We'll see. I might be able to get everything up on the show's website by Friday night when I go on the air. So I'll let you guys know about that. So we got 3 minutes left. Of course, check out talkofthenight.weebly.com. And if you follow Into the Paranormal, which there is a banner ad up on the Talk of the Night website, if you click on it, it will take you to that YouTube channel. That's my YouTube channel. Be sure to hit the subscribe and the notification bell, and also give it a like if you like the videos. Last week's video, I was unable to get it loaded up to my computer, so I'm going to probably load up 2 videos this weekend for Into the Paranormal, so be sure to check that out. So, we got 2 minutes. I'm trying to fill in 1 more minute before I play my closing music. So, again, thank you for tuning in to the show. Without you, the listeners, there is no show. But I need you guys to spread the word. Tell people about the show. Get people interested in calling into the show, especially when a guest is on, asking them questions. And until next time, or actually until tomorrow night when we talk about animal communications, and since I love scaring the heck out of people, I am going to do this. Till next time, I shall see you on the dark side. Good night from Talking the Night. Ha 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 ha!